alaikum and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the webinar entitled Application of Nature-Inspired Algorithms to Wind Farm Layout Design by Dr. Salman Khan, who has graciously joined us today. This webinar is brought to you by IEEE MUET-SZAB Student Branch and IEEE PAF-KIET Student Branch collaboratively. We are extremely delighted to have Dr. Salman Khan with us today, who is currently a professor of PAF-KIET College of Computing and Information Sciences. His research interests are optimization, fuzzy logic, multi-criteria decision-making, nature-inspired algorithms, and applications of these concepts to several domains such as computer networks, network security, cloud computing, and renewable energy. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us today. Before we begin, all our participants are requested to keep your mics and videos turned off during the entire session. We will have a Q&A session at the end in which you can raise your hand and the host will give you opportunity to ask your questions. You can also send any questions or messages to the host through the chat with your name and affiliation at the end. Please be attentive during the session as there will be a short and easy quiz at the end, which will be sent to you through email along with the recording of the webinar. You will also have 24 hours to attempt the quiz in order to be eligible for the certificate. The certificates will also be emailed to you within 1 week from today. Now, without further ado, we'll hand over the control to our most esteemed speaker, Dr. Salman Khan.
Thank you very much and welcome all of you to this presentation. Let me just open the presentation and just try to have some background about myself, a little bit more background, and the reasons why am I here in this presentation today. As our host has already introduced, I have actually sort of a diverse background in terms of research, and I believe most of you are here in this presentation because of your interest in one of the topics, which is, it could be either the nature-inspired algorithms. We'll see what are these algorithms, what do they do to our daily lives, and where they are going to take us in the near future. And the other thing is the application side of it, which is basically in the domain of wind energy. I am actually, my bachelor's and master's was in computer engineering and then my PhD in computer science. And all of this was abroad. So I don't have much experience in terms of doing research or study in Pakistan. But I'm fortunate enough to actually share and exchange my knowledge with the students here for the past 2 years or so. I'm associated with PAF-KIET. So one of the things I was saying as my interest that I developed in the wind energy domain, and that's about like 10 years back. I was about to finish my PhD. I actually developed interest in renewable energy. And for the past 10 years, I have completed numerous projects with several universities outside Pakistan. The total worth of these projects in terms of US dollars was around.
Sir?
Yes.
Okay. Sir,
Yes.
there is a bit of distortion in your voice.
Okay, let me just do some fixes here. Just saying that I developed interest in wind energy like 10 years back when I met one of my former colleagues, and from there I've been actually involved in several projects. So the presentation that you see today is part of one of those projects which I have recently completed. And luckily, I've got in the past 10 years within the domain of wind energy, I've got like $500,000 grants, and still I have one project going on in which I'm serving as a consultant. So this presentation actually gives me an opportunity as well to interact with some of you who might be interested in carrying out research in the domain of wind energy, and especially from the perspective of computational science and data analysis in terms of algorithm designs, etc., etc. So let me just go to the outline of the presentation. So I'm going to talk about the wind farm layout design problem in the first place. And then we'll see what are these nature-inspired algorithms or nature-inspired techniques, which are basically, they fall into the domain of intelligent optimization algorithms. Okay, so we'll have some observations, and then we'll talk about some research opportunities, which I'm sure would be of great benefit to many of you, as I said, if you're interested in carrying out research in the domain of wind energy and in computational sciences as well. And then we'll have a conclusion followed by a Q&A session. So let me just go to the problem very quickly. Now, before I go into the technical aspects, let me just first give you the motivation behind having wind energy as a focus areas of research in the near future. It is actually one problem that we see with the existing fuel, let's say, supplies. We are dealing with traditional fuels. You talk about petrol, you talk about coal, you talk about natural gas. Yes, they have been with us for at least a century or so. And they have done quite well in terms of providing the energy requirements, satisfying the energy requirements of the world. But then we have two potential problems with the traditional or fossil-based fuels. First thing is naturally the cost of it. Okay, they come from various resources, various countries, and recently we have seen in the past a few months or probably a few years that these fossil fuels have a big impact in terms of controlling the economical aspect, the price, the tariffs worldwide. So we need to actually look into this aspect. This is one problem. Another problem is sort of a geopolitical or geoeconomic situation in the world. What we see here, sorry, I forgot to open my video, so let me just share my video with you, although I don't look the real Salman Khan, but it will do the job. Okay, so I hope you can see me all. Yeah, that's me. I look a little different in the real life, but anyway. So we were talking about the fossil fuels, and the problems that we have seen with the fossil fuels is that they are quite expensive. They are not available worldwide. There are only a few countries that actually have sort of, I would say, monopoly on these natural resources. So because of the geopolitical and the geoeconomical conditions, these countries can control things, and for economies that depend heavily on natural fuel supply, they really suffer a lot. Okay? And definitely Pakistan is one of those countries which has a very strong reliance on these external fuel supplies. We get our fuels from various countries, mainly from the Middle East, and we do suffer with lots of problems in terms of their on-time delivery, in terms of their cost, especially. And naturally, the other thing is the environmental pollution. We all know these fossil fuels. They are carbon fuels, and they have made the environment sort of a big problem to handle with the CFC gases, with the greenhouse gases, and all these different, because you see these fossil fuels are the biggest source of pollution worldwide. So we have to tackle this issue, and especially with the last few years, what we have seen is sort of awareness among the world community in terms of dealing with the pollution, in terms of the climatic conditions issues. So looking at all these different things, the research in the domain of renewable energy was sort of initiated around 3 or 4 decades back. But when we talk about the computational part of it, the algorithms to deal with these different problems, yes, we can go back around 30 years or so. So while we are talking about these alternative energy sources, we have wind energy, we have solar energy, we have biomass, and a couple of other sources. But the most prominent of these, or the most attractive, I would say, is first of all wind and then solar. Why? Because you see, sunlight and wind, they are not sort of, let's say, controlled by any geographical boundaries. They are free, they are available worldwide. Yes, the potential of these two sources varies from country to country, from region to region. If you talk in terms of the region that is covered by Pakistan, we are extremely lucky. We do have a lot of potential for wind energy, and we also have a lot of potential for solar energy. I was just reading some material a few weeks back, and just with the solar and the wind energy, if you go with that, and you forget about the other sources of energy that we have, the nuclear or the hydropower sources, just the wind and the solar combined, it can give you more than 50,000 megawatts of energy. This is I'm talking about the minimum. Okay? The maximum is way beyond this. Okay? And that is almost double the requirements that the country needs. So we have a lot of potential over there. And the good thing is that when we talk about wind energy, for that sake, wind energy is available all year, okay, 24/7. And compared to the traditional sources of energy and the power plants that we have to develop for harnessing those energies from the fossil fuels, it takes a lot of time. We talk about, like we have been seeing about the Basha Dam a few days back, and as far as I understand, the construction of such dams takes around at least 8 to 10 years. So we cannot get any advantage of we cannot, let's say, get the energy from those dams or from that dam before 8 years. The same thing goes with the petrol-based or gas-based, energy-producing platforms, where you have to construct the whole, the whole platform takes many years, at least 4 to 5 to 6 years, before you can get the energy out of it. But the good thing about wind farms is that if things go well, as per the plan, you can have a wind farm within 1 year producing energy. Okay, now that is tremendous in terms of the time scale. You start from today, and in 8 to 10 months or a year or so, you can get your wind farm ready to produce electricity. Okay. The thing that we have is the initial costs are a bit high. Okay, and for that, we need to have lots of investments coming from different sources. But again, I'm not going to talk about the economical side of all these things. I'm a computer scientist, so I'll be looking at these problems from the perspective of a computer scientist. So as we were talking about, I mean, coming back to the focus of this presentation, when we talk about installing turbines in a certain location, we first have to do a feasibility study. Okay? And assuming that the feasibility study is done about the climatic conditions, how much wind is there, what are the temperatures throughout the year, and the humidity levels, etc., all those things, because you have to look at corrosion and other physical factors over there. But coming back to the computational aspect of it, what we have is that we have to design a farm in an efficient way. Now, what do we mean by designing a farm? You see, we have many turbines over there that need to be installed in that region that has been identified as the potential region for wind farm, for wind energy generation. Now, but we cannot just put the turbines right away the way you like. No, it doesn't work like that, because there are certain technical limitations. There are certain constraints that need to be taken care of, and that is actually what we are going to see in the presentation today. That it's not just the job is not just to put the turbines into that specific location, but we have to put the turbines in a specific structure and a layout. And to design that layout is not an easy job. Now, once this layout design is done, the rest is just the physical part of it in terms of installations and maintenance and testing, etc. So I'm not going to go into the physical part of it. As I said, I'll be focusing on the computational part of it. So let's try to understand the layout design problem at the first place. Now, to just give you a few statistics, although they are a bit old, I'm sorry I couldn't get the latest updates. But what I know is that this graph is actually increasing exponentially as well. I mean, if you look at the installation of wind turbines and the generation of wind power from wind farms worldwide, and you see that the overall trend worldwide is continuously increasing. When we started with the first wind farm coming in the year 2000 in different countries, where we generated around 17 gigawatts of power. Now that has gone to 487 gigawatts of power, and in 2018 that has gone to 500, I think 60 or 70 gigawatts of wind power worldwide. Now that is huge. Now, so which country is leading? Well, for the last so many years, China is actually the global controller of the wind market, or the wind turbine industry and wind energy for that sake. China has been producing the maximum amount of wind energy in the world. Okay? So if you say that in terms of numbers, we got like 23,328 megawatts, or roughly 23 gigawatts of power generation in 2016 in China. The other leading countries, in the top 5, we have, apart from China, we have the United States, Germany, India, and Brazil, okay, with these numbers. Certain other countries like France, Turkey, the Netherlands, United Kingdom, and Canada, they're also doing a good effort. Africa and Middle East, they are doing a big effort as well, but they are still lagging behind. In terms of Pakistan, we have a lot to do. We have a long way to go. as of now, we only have one wind farm functioning and operational, that is near the Jampir area. If you go from Karachi towards Hyderabad, somewhere on the way, you'll see those turbines. They are producing a few megawatts of energy. I don't know the exact number, but it is operational. That's the only wind farm that we have in the country as of now, functioning. And then we have, as I understand, more than 10 projects in progress in terms of development at different stages, at different phases. But I don't know when exactly we are going to see those farms generating the energy. But even if we assume that those farms are completed within the next 2 years, the amount of power that is produced by those farms will not be sufficient at all. It will just be adding a little bit amount of energy to the national grid. The power requirements that we have in the country, they are tremendous and they are increasing at a very high rate. So we either have to reduce the power requirements, which is very difficult to manage. The other thing is to improve or enhance the power generation capacity. And that can only be done with new power sources. So I'm glad, we should all be glad actually that at least the country is moving in the direction of renewable energy. We should also be focusing on the solar part, on the solar energy, because we have a tremendous potential in terms of the solar energy. But I'll be talking about the wind. So wind, yes, we have a lot of potential, and we should use that potential in the most positive way. Okay, so let's look at the layout design problem. Okay. As I was just saying, that when you have a number of turbines and you have to install them in a certain location, in a region, you cannot just put all of them the way you like. No, there has to be a pattern that you have to follow. Okay. And if you look at it from the computational point of view, finding this best pattern, or I would use the term configuration, finding this best configuration is actually a complex optimization problem. Okay. Because you have so many possible configurations that can exist, and we need to find the best one out of these. Now, in terms of talking, it appears to be very simple. We just try different permutations, combinations here and there, and see which one gives you the best output. Well, it's not simple as that. I'll come back to this figure a little later, but let me just try to explain to you the complexity of this problem. So what exactly we do when we talk about designing a wind farm layout, the traditional typical approach that we have is you divide the region into a 10 by 10 grid. That is the standard procedure that is used in the industry, typically. Okay, there are little deviations from it, yes, but this is the sort of a de facto standard that the wind turbine suppliers or the developers, the wind farm developers, they use. So what do we do is, whatever region do we have, is it a 2 kilometer by 2 kilometer, 5 kilometer by 5 kilometer, whatever. We divide this region into a 10 by 10 grid. Okay, so that gives us 100 different locations to put the turbines. Okay, so the turbines can be put in any of these squares. So one turbine goes into one square. Now it also depends on how many turbines we have to put. Okay, so I'll just show you a case study where we have to put, I think, 19 turbines, right? So if we assume that these black boxes over there, they represent a turbine being installed in that particular location. So I'm showing you just two configurations with 19 turbines. Another example scenario is two possible configurations with 15 turbines, right? Now, with these 19 turbines, you can actually have so many possible configurations over here where you can put these 19 turbines in different configurations. Like I can put maybe 10 turbines in the first row and the 9 turbines in the last row. Okay, I can scatter them like the way they are done here. I can, for example, put 10 of them over here and 9 of them over there. I can put them in a diagonal shape. So there are so many possibilities over there. But then are they good enough? Are they equally good, all of them? No, they are not. Because each configuration actually has a different power output. If you look at the total power generation by these turbines, it's going to be different for each layout, for each configuration. Why? Because there are certain physical and natural effects that are there. Like, look at these two turbines, for example. In this particular case, one at the back, one just in front of it. Now, what happens actually if the wind is coming from this direction, right? The turbine in the front will actually absorb more wind, and definitely if it absorbs more wind, it will generate more power. The one at the back will actually will not get enough wind because it has the wind, the core part of the wind has already been absorbed by the one in the front. So this we have a small amount of wind, and this is what wake effect. You have a turbine in the front here. This is the front. The air is coming for the wind is coming from this direction. So most of the air would be absorbed, the wind would be absorbed at this point, and then it generates for and the next turbine, which is actually at this position, will not be able to get enough of that wind, and definitely it will not move with its maximum rotation. Definitely it will not produce that much energy. We have to look at these different possible configurations. The power 100 possible configurations over there, depending on how many turbines we have installed. Now, this is huge, okay? And just that we need to increase the power. Basically, we need to minimize the cost as well. So, our objective is to maximize the power output and minimize the cost. Cost of what? Definitely, when we have a cost, you have the operational maintenance cost, right? Because if you have turbines in close proximity, they're going to be affecting each other. They will require more maintenance. Easy cost aspect involved. So we have to look at both things. We have to look at the maximization of power output and minimization of cost. We cannot try all these different possible configurations. We can do that with the exhaustive search. Yes, indeed. And the exhaustive search would definitely give us the optimal or the best configuration. But if you look at it from the perspective of computational science, definitely it's going to be very expensive in terms of computational time, right? And which we do not want. Have a solution that would give us the optimal configuration and in a reasonable amount of computational time. Okay? I mean, imagine if we are dealing with a situation where we have to have the turbine installed, or let's say the whole wind farm developed within a year, and just the layout design takes about a month or so, right? It's not effective, it's not efficient. So we cannot go for exhaustive, and trust me that if I've done studies with exhaustive search techniques to find solutions, sometimes it takes weeks to get the final output. And I'm not exaggerating, it takes weeks. Okay? And this is the reason that we have to go for intelligent search. So where do we get this intelligence? And why do we need to have this intelligent search? And what is the advantage of this intelligent search? First of all, as many of you might have studied about these nation-state algorithms, they are actually intelligent algorithms. They do not search for the whole search space, or let's say they don't look for all those possible configurations that I've just mentioned. They only assess a subset of those configurations. And which subset? The ones that have sort of a potential to be a good configuration. Okay? So they go for a sort of an intelligent search. And the second thing is, because we're talking about intelligent search, we don't look for all the possible solutions. We only check a set of solutions. Definitely the computational time to get the final solution gets reduced tremendously. And the good thing about these intelligent algorithms is that in most cases, they get you the optimal solution or optimal configuration. Okay. Yes, they do not guarantee to have the optimal configuration because there are certain limitations, and we'll not go into the technical details of those limitations. But in most cases, they give you the optimal solution. I've done a lot of research in terms of publications. So in the last 10 years, I have like about 15 or so research papers that talk about this layout design problem, okay, and the associated problems, and employed these intelligent search algorithms. And guess what? We found very good results in many cases, the optimal configurations from these intelligent search algorithms. Okay, so what are these intelligent search algorithms? They fall into the domain of artificial intelligence. Okay, and as I said, they are almost guaranteeing you the optimal solution without looking at the total number of configurations that we have. Now, we have various intelligence optimization techniques, nation-inspired techniques, because they have been inspired from the natural phenomena. God Almighty has created all creatures, all species with different levels and different intelligence capacities. I mean, as humans, yes, we do have a lot of intellectual, capacity in terms of thinking, in terms of dealing with issues, intellectual issues, but then we still have certain limitations. So we need to take the motivations from these natural species. Like genetic algorithm is one of these algorithms, one of the oldest algorithms that has been applied to the the layout problem, the wind farm layout problem, quite extensively. We have particles optimization that is inspired from the behavior of how birds search for food. We have a school of fish. We have birds searching for food source. We have simulated annealing that is inspired by the cooling of metal. How if we have a metal that has been heated to a very high temperature and you leave it to cool down, so the crystallization and the crystal structure that would be formed with this natural cooling process, that gives a lot of strength basically to the iron, to the metal that you are dealing with. We have the ant colony optimization. It's based on how ants search for food source. Okay. We have the honeybee colony optimization, one of my favorites actually, how honeybees search for food. We have cuckoo search, again, how cuckoos have behaviors, and they have so each of these algorithms they have get inspiration from various natural phenomena, and based on these, the intelligent algorithms have been developed. I've used almost all of them in the domain of wind farm design and in the domain of wind energy. Okay, so without going into the more technical details, I would like to focus on certain observations and some research opportunities. So what I have observed in the past 10 years, I've done extensive research with many international colleagues, with many international research centers and universities. What actually I found, again, that number 2016 has to be updated. Sorry, it was from a previous slide. But even until today, I was writing a research paper, and that has been submitted today to a very good journal. So in the past 30 years or so, I analyzed the literature and I made certain observations. One thing was that the genetic algorithm was used in more than 70% research publications or studies that are focusing on the wind farm layout problem and the wind energy domain in general. So here's an opportunity for researchers. So those of you who are working on their master's thesis or their PhD dissertation, and if you are interested in carrying out research that synergizes the computational part, the algorithmic part, with the practical problem of the future. Okay? That could be one focus area where you need to look at some recent algorithms. Yes, there have been some studies where people have tried new algorithms, but again, the usage of those algorithms is very limited. Okay. Now, another thing that we have is most of these research papers, they looked at what we call the single objective perspective. They looked at the problems from the single objective optimization perspective. What does that mean? They either looked at the cost minimization or power maximization, right? Just a few moments ago, we talked about the fact that we need to maximize the power, and at the same time, we need to minimize the what we say conflicting with each other. What does that mean? It means that if you want to improve the power output, it doesn't come for free. You have to give more, cost in terms of in terms of several aspects, right? For example, the turbine tower that you have, what we call the hub, on which the turbine is installed, you cannot just put a turbine at any height. You have to calculate the optimal height where you get the maximum air. Okay? Now we also have a technical limitation that you cannot just install a turbine a kilometer or 2 kilometers above the ground level. Okay, it cannot go beyond 140 or 150 meters. That's the maximum. Okay. And for each 10-meter increment in the size of this turbine, okay, the size of just a 10-meter increment in this tower, this turbine tower where we installed, it's more than $130,000 US dollars. Just a 10-meter change in the turbine and the tower height, and that's a tremendous amount of investment. Not just that, the higher that you go, when it comes to maintenance, it will be difficult because the maintenance staff has to go up there, probably through a helicopter, because climbing up like 30 or 40 stories, 30 stories at least, or so, by a human being and then doing the repairing work for hours and then coming down, it's going to be hazardous. It could be a great hazard to the life of that engineer or technician. Right? So we need to reduce the turbine height, and that's definitely it saves us the cost. But then when you reduce this tower height, you don't get much of an air at the bottom. You get more air at the higher altitude. So here we have a problem. You need more air, you have to go higher. But when the moment you go higher, you get more air definitely, but then the cost goes up because of the maintenance and the hazards. So what do we need to do? We need to find a balance where we have a reasonable or acceptable level of wind speed and the wind power, and an acceptable level of the tower height. And this is one way of looking at it. There are so many other aspects of it, because the power computation, the cost computation, etc., can be done in several ways. So what we need to look at is a more realistic approach. This is what we call multi-objective optimization. What is multi-objective optimization? Again, this is a very rich and established field of research where we have to look at multiple conflicting objectives in the optimization process. So as I was saying, most of the previous studies, at least in the wind farm layout design, they were focused on a single objective, which is not, in my opinion, is not realistic. Okay, and I have a few papers in this domain talking about the multi-objective modeling of this wind farm layout problem. So this is again another opportunity for improvement for future research. Now another important thing, very important part of it, okay? We as computer scientists or engineers or scientists, we know that whenever you want to test a new technology, a new algorithm, we need to have test cases, which we call the benchmark, right? The benchmark suite. Now, unfortunately, as far as the wind farm layout problem is concerned, we don't have any benchmarks until now. It has been almost 30 years. People have been doing very extensive research in the domain of the wind farm layout design, but so far, benchmarks have not been developed to test. I mean, let's say I designed an algorithm today, okay, and I want to see an algorithm to actually find the layout, the optimal layout. Okay, now how am I going to ensure that this algorithm gives us better performance than a previously proposed algorithm? Right? I have to have the same set of input data, but as I said, there's no standard input data available. So studies have been so far like a little bit distracted from different perspectives. What we need here is the development of benchmark. Now, at this moment, I'm actually working with a team of students in KIET, working on the development of this wind farm. Okay, so so what we have here, those students are actually, I had a set of students last semester in KIET. They have collected some data from the existing turbines worldwide. And then I have a student in this semester I'm teaching in KIET undergraduate students and some master students. They are working on cleaning this data and then ensuring that the data that is going to be developed as a benchmark, it satisfies the requirements of benchmark. But again, this is just one effort from our side. There's a lot of room in terms of the benchmark development because there's a lot of problems that need to be solved within the wind farm domain, within the wind energy actually domain. Wind farm layout design is one problem in that domain. There are so many other problems, but unfortunately, as I said, benchmarks, test cases, other test cases do not exist. So this is one potential direction for research. And then what others have done? Okay. Most of the studies to date, they were using the standard algorithms, the basic versions. Generic algorithm, it has been proposed like 50, 60 years back. Many people are still using the basic version of it. Particles optimization, cuckoo search, etc., etc. People are still using the basic algorithms to test their or to actually carry out their studies. But this is not enough. Okay? We need better algorithms. We need more efficient algorithms. And from where do we get these efficient algorithms? Uh, from our computer science. Certain directions like hybridization of algorithms, that is my expertise, where you merge two or more algorithms together. Sometimes it has to be, it can be some nation-state algorithms combined together, different features of one algorithm taken from here, taken from there, taken from that place, and uh, uh, being put together in a natural, sort of synergy. Then we can have simple algorithms, greedy algorithms combined with nation-state algorithm. This is another direction. So more efficient algorithms coming from hybridization. Then dynamic assignments of parameters. If you have worked on genetic algorithms or similar algorithms, they have certain parameters. The practice so far that has been in the domain of wind energy is that the researchers there tend to fix those parameters manually by trial and error. That's a very common practice. But then, if you look at it from the computational science view, you can have more intelligent, approaches to adjust these parameters in a dynamic way, rather than do it manually. The algorithm itself would adjust the parameters according to its different structures and different requirements. Hyperheuristics, this is another domain of research. And then parallelization, people who are working in the domain of parallel computing or grid computing, etc. They can look at this turbine layout, wind farm layout problem from the parallelization. So there are so many directions in terms of the algorithms domain, which actually, as for computational science or computer science or computer engineering as students, these are more attractive to us. Now, why you may ask why these have not been tried before? It's because of the fact that most of the people who are working in the domain of wind farm and wind energy, they were from electrical engineering and mechanical engineering background. They have good information about algorithms, but not to that level. They are good users of the algorithm, but they are not the good developers. Or definitely, in other words, this is our job as computer scientists or computer engineers, to develop algorithms, coming up with better algorithms. Okay. So now the trend is, for the past few years, I've been looking at different papers in there, and the trends that I've seen is that now they have a multidisciplinary approach where we put from people from mechanical engineer, from electrical engineering, from computer science. Like the people I'm working with, my co-researchers, two of them, they are from mechanical engineering background. They don't have much information about algorithms, and this is where I jump in. I tell them, what can we do from the algorithms point of view? I have another colleague in Malaysia who has an industrial engineering and electrical engineering background. I've worked with him. I have a colleague that has a background of software engineering. Yes, it does fall into that domain, but then we also have to look at from the some aspects are the hardware aspects in this whole process. So this is where I jump in as a computer engineer, because I'm lucky enough to be a computer engineer. I have the knowledge of the hardware and the software both put together. So this is some of the directions that I have in terms of the algorithms and their design. And then another thing that you can look at, or people can look at, is the comparative studies. What I've seen with the literature, that people are using one algorithm on a specific turbine layout, wind farm layout problem, and that's it. Okay? So they said, okay, we are going to design a wind farm in this region, Pakistan, for example, and they collect the data about that region, they apply an algorithm on that region, and they give this configuration and say, okay, we've got the answer here. This is what we have. But that's not enough. In my opinion, that's not enough. What we need to do is we have to try multiple algorithms on the same problem, and then try to get the best result from a specific algorithm. So definitely we need to try 3 or 4 or maybe more algorithms. That is a trend now, by the way, in other domains, not in the wind farm or the wind energy domain, but in our domain, and most of you have might have encountered this, that when you want to find a solution to a problem, you have to try multiple algorithms and then report the one that gives you the best results. So in the domain of wind energy, and specifically the wind farm layout, studies have not focused on the comparative aspects, the comparative analysis of different algorithms, which is again an open problem and potential problem for future research. So these are some of the directions, some of the opportunities that I have identified. So just to sum it up, what we actually see from this presentation, we have a very bright future in terms of alternative or clean energy, and wind energy has a big stake in the future, at least for the next 10 to 15 years, maybe more to come. We see a lot of potential for the people who are working in the domain of wind energy. Okay. I would just like to add one personal experience. I mean, back in 2009, I had freshly completed my PhD, and then I applied to different organizations and different companies for jobs. I was already working at that point, but I was looking for a job to switch to industry. And I applied to IBM in Ireland. IBM has a very big research center in IBM, and they are working in the domain of smart cities. And this wind energy thing actually falls in the domain of smart cities. So I had a few publications at that time in the domain of wind energy, and they called me. I was sitting in my office. I remember that day. They called me. They had an interview with me, and I just at the end, because those Europeans, they are not very formal in terms of talking. So I asked them at the end. I said, okay, you have to, and he said that okay, we are going to invite you for the second round of interview. We have sort of pleased to talk to you, and we'll update you. So I just asked him, okay, so you looked at my CV, and you probably had received many other CVs. Okay. So what makes my CV different than others? And the guy told me, I didn't look at all your research papers. I only looked at 2 of your research papers. You were published in actually very good venues. And he said, this is the reason we are interviewing you. Other than that, if you did not have those 2 publications, I would just put your CV aside without giving it a second thought. So things didn't work out at a later stage because they were demanding, their requirements were different in terms of job requirements. They require a lot of travel worldwide, and the salary scale. So things didn't work out. But the point to make here is, if you want to pursue a career as a computer scientist, work in the domain which combines computer science with emerging fields, especially wind energy. You see, 5 things or 4 things, and that's my personal opinion. You might actually not need different technologies, different things here and there. Or let me say, you might be able to survive without those technologies, right? But there are 5 fundamental things or 4 fundamental things that you cannot survive with. Okay, the very first thing is food. Okay, you cannot live without food. You cannot live without healthcare. You cannot live without electricity or power, right? you cannot live without clothing, and you cannot live without house. Right? These are the 5 fundamental things that you need in the present day to survive. Now, some people give me the arguments, what about the computers and all these things? Yes, they are an essential part of our life. But then we were living without these things 20, 30 years back. I mean, I don't know about the participants here, but I've seen those times when there was no mobile phone, when there was no internet, there was no computer at all even, okay? There were no fancy things, technological things over there, and people were still living and living happily, right? But did the humankind or the human race ever live without food? No. Can we live without health care? Without basic health care? No, we cannot survive. Definitely we need medicines, we need treatments. Okay. Can we live without a house? In this era? Yeah. Can over there, yes. Those of you who have gone for Hajj, alhamdulillah, I've been to the place multiple times. Okay, we have to live in tents for just for 4 or 5 days, and people become sort of aggressive that living in a tent is not that simple. Despite that, we have these things. I've seen people living in migration areas and living in tents. It's horrible. So you need a proper house to live in. Okay. Imagine we had this rain a few days back in Karachi, and imagine if you had, if you don't have these proper houses and you were living in open areas or tents, what would have been the catastrophe, right? It could be a much big level of chaos. So all these are different things. These 5 or 6 things that I've just mentioned. This is what we have in future. These are future. So why not make these things better with computational science and the computer science and effort from our side as computer engineers or computer scientists can make these things better. So invest your potential, invest your time, invest your intellectual capabilities into one of these domains. I'm focusing on wind energy for the time being. I'm going to continue with it for the next few years or so, and this is a very promising field. So we talked about different complexity issues, about the technical aspects of the problem, and with this I end my discussion. So I would thank you for your attention first of all. And I would like to hear from you in terms of any questions or any comments that you have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Salman. That was indeed a very educational presentation. Definitely couldn't get this from anywhere else.
Thank you.
Any participants that would like to ask questions? The floor is open. The host will unmute your mics and you may ask your question. You can raise your hand.
Okay, so I have a question from Mr. Ahmed Kashif, branch coordinator. I see a raised hand over there. Oh, that's you. Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, I can see that. Okay.
Sir, 2 questions in your
And
chat.
if you want to ask a question in Urdu, yeah, just to say, if you are not comfortable with English, you can ask me question in Urdu or in Arabic. And I speak a little bit of French as well. So whatever makes you comfortable. Yes. Anyone, please.
Sir, 2 questions in your chat. 2 questions in your chat.
I think.
So you can see.
I think. Okay, yeah. Just give me a minute. I need to have a little focus here. Yes. Okay. So I have a question, sir. Can we use AI-based algorithm-based search? Indeed, yes. Why not? That's what we have been talking about. Okay. We have been using genetic algorithms over there. And as I said, genetic algorithm is taking a big chunk of research. Still, people are using it in, as far as I can tell you, in terms of wind energy, in the domain of wind energy. I am using it. I'm still writing a paper using genetic algorithm, of course, with in comparison with some other algorithms as well. So yes, your question is very much valid and very much timely indeed. I have another question. So if multi-objective optimization is more suitable, then should we need to have trade-off related to computational cost in general? From Sophia Yusuf. See, first thing is, if you're talking about multi-objective optimization, definitely you have to look at the trade-off. But then, yes, the trade-off could be in terms of the computational cost as well. See, what we look at is, or let me put it in different words. What the energy producers or the mechanical engineers put or look at is basically the cost to benefit ratio, the cost to power production ratio, right? They are not very much interested in the computational aspect of it. But we as computer scientists, definitely we need to have the computational aspect as well. I mean, I was just talking about having the exhaustive search, or let's say non-efficient algorithms compared to these efficient algorithms that we are talking about, the intelligent algorithms. So yes, indeed, we have to look at the computational cost as well. Now the question is, can we include this computational cost as part of the problem modeling? We can do that, indeed. Why not? Definitely it can be done, where you don't only look at the problem from the financial cost or the power generation output, but you also assess the algorithm from the computational point of view. So definitely that can be added as a third dimension, as a third objective. I mean, the computational cost. It can be added as a third objective into your multi-objective problem model. I hope that is satisfying to you. The answer. Any more questions?
Any more questions, participants? You can raise your hand and the host will unmute your mics.
Yes.
Yes, host, can you please unmute Dr. Umaima Hani?
Okay, let me just let me see if I can see her. Walaikum Assalam.
सर मैं ये कहना चाह रही थी कि जो मुझे फील होता है ना, मेरा सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियरिंग का पीएचडी है और अपना ख्वाहिश करती हूँ कि किसी ऐसे एरिया में जैसे स्मार्ट सिटीज हो गई उसमें कुछ काम कर सकूँ, ठीक है। तो लेकिन मुझे जो सबसे बड़ा जो रेजिस्टेंस उसमें फील हो रहा होता है, ये हो रहा होता है कि हमारे जो डोमेन्स हैं उन डोमेन से हमारा कुछ लेना देना है नहीं, यानी वहां पर वर्क करने वालों लोगों से के साथ हमारा ना उठना बैठना है ना पीआर है। तो आप क्या समझते हैं कि अगर लेट्स अज्यूम इवन अगर हम जुडिशरी के लिए ही बना रहे हैं, एक स्मार्ट सिटी बनानी है, उसमें जुडिशरी का सिस्टम हम अपना सारा ऑटोमेट कर रहे हैं, नहीं कर रहे वेंड वाला, तो हमें आप नहीं समझते एक ऐसा प्लेटफॉर्म होना चाहिए जहां पर जो सोर्सेज हैं सारी वो रिसर्चर्स के लिए अवेलेबल हुई हो, ताकि वो उसमें पार्टिसिपेट कर सकें। जैसे इंडस्ट्री के प्रोजेक्ट्स नहीं आते, उसमें फिर हम रिक्वेस्ट फॉर प्रपोजल के जवाब में सबमिट करते हैं अपने एसआरएसएस बना के। कुछ मुझे प्रोसीजर कुछ समझ नहीं आ रहा है, ये रिसर्च से रिलेटेड हमारी कंट्री में किस तरह से चल रहा है। हमें इदारों पे ग्रिप नहीं है, इदारों में उठना बैठना है नहीं बिल्कुल, और हम ख्वाहिशात बहुत रखते हैं। तो ये कैसा होता है?
जी, आपका क्वेश्चन वैलिड है, although it is not very much related to my presentation, but मैं इस कैपेसिटी में नहीं हूँ कि मैं जो पॉलिटिकल एस्पेक्ट पे या एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव एस्पेक्ट पे कुछ कमेंट कर सकूं कि चीज़ें हमको सबको पता है, चीज़ें जो हैं डेफिनेटली उनमें सब डोमेन्स में, सारी डोमेन्स में इम्प्रूवमेंट की बहुत गुंजाइश है और बहुत ज़रूरत है, ठीक है। लेकिन ये कि हम अपनी साइड से जो एफर्ट कर सकते हैं, एंड वी आर एक्सपर्ट इन द डोमेन ऑफ कंप्यूटर साइंस सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियरिंग, राइट। अपनी तरफ से हम जो कर सकते हैं वो एल्गोरिथम्स प्रपोज कर सकते हैं, टेक्निक्स प्लेटफॉर्म्स दे सकते हैं, जो कि जैसे ई गवर्नमेंट में फॉर एग्जांपल मैंने थोड़ा सा काम किया था, मैं बहरीन में था एक दो लोगों के साथ। ई गवर्नमेंट में बहुत पोटेंशियल है, राइट, बट उस पोटेंशियल को सही तरह से एक्सप्लॉइट करने के लिए हमको एक एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव सपोर्ट की ज़रूरत है फ्रॉम दी कंसर्न अथॉरिटीज़। ये अथॉरिटीज़ आपके प्राइवेट सेक्टर में, इंडस्ट्री में हो सकती हैं, ये डेफिनेटली गवर्नमेंट इंस्टीट्यूशंस भी हो सकते हैं। हमारे पास प्रॉब्लम यहाँ पे ये है, पाकिस्तान में मुझे 2 साल हो गए हैं और मैं अभी तक इस प्रॉब्लम से सफ़र कर रहा हूँ। और मुझे प्रॉब्लम्स पहले इतना नहीं हुआ, क्योंकि पहली मेरी जो रिसर्च चल रही थी तकरीबन 15-20 साल तक, 15 साल तक, वहाँ पे यूनिवर्सिटीज़ में था, मैं मिडल ईस्ट में मेनली ज़्यादा रहा हूँ, यूनिवर्सिटीज़ में था, वहाँ पे यूनिवर्सिटीज़ के अंदर पूरा एक रिसर्च ऑफिस, मैंने रिसर्च ऑफिस में एज अ असिस्टेंट डायरेक्टर भी काम किया एक यूनिवर्सिटी के रिसर्च ऑफिस में, जहाँ पॉलिसी मेकिंग और इंडस्ट्री एकेडेमिया लियाजियन पे काम करते थे। उसके लिए एफर्ट चाहिए, ठीक है। प्रॉब्लम पाकिस्तान में ये है कि इंडस्ट्री, और सिर्फ पाकिस्तान में नहीं, जो भी डेवलपिंग कंट्रीज हैं, जो थोड़ा सा मैंने देखा है, इंडस्ट्री जो है वो एकेडेमिया पे ट्रस्ट नहीं करती, टू बी वेरी ऑनेस्ट विद यू। सॉरी टू यूज द वर्ड्स, लेकिन ये जो मैंने यहाँ फील किया है, और मैंने अभी एक प्रपोजल भी सबमिट की है रिसेंटली, पिछले हफ्ते हमारे एक कोलीग के साथ। मुझे सबसे बड़ा प्रॉब्लम उस प्रपोजल में ये हुआ कि मुझे इंडस्ट्री पार्टनर ढूंढने में बड़ी परेशानी हुई। तो मेरे कॉलीग जो हैं उनके लिंक्स अच्छे थे, वो अपने पर्सनल लिंक्स के बेसिस पे एक इंडस्ट्री पार्टनर ढूंढ के। प्रॉब्लम क्या है इंडस्ट्री पार्टनर्स का, वो ये समझते हैं, ये इंडस्ट्री में लोग हैं कि ये पाकिस्तान की बात बताऊँ, एटलीस्ट जो मैंने फील किया है, कि ये लोग जो यूनिवर्सिटीज़ में PhD करके चले आते हैं ना, ये फालतू लोग होते हैं, सॉरी टू यूज द वर्ड, कि ये कुछ नहीं कर सके जिंदगी में तो जाके मास्टर बन गए। दैट्स द फीलिंग। बाहर ऐसा नहीं है, ठीक है। बाहर एक अलग इन्वायरमेंट है। आप में से जिन लोगों ने अगर बाहर कुछ पढ़ा या काम किया, एटलीस्ट मेरा एक्सपीरियंस ये रहा है कि वहाँ पे कोलैबोरेशंस होती हैं। वहाँ पे US में भी मैंने तो पढ़ा है, मैं US में देखा है, वहाँ पे जो रिसर्च चल रही होती है ना स्टूडेंट्स की, PhD या मास्टर्स की जो रिसर्च चल रही होती है, रिसर्च लैब्स बनी हुई होती है, वो यूनिवर्सिटी पैसे नहीं दे रही होती, वो उनको ग्रांट्स मिली हुई होती हैं इंडस्ट्री से। और क्यों मिली हुई होती हैं? तो इसलिए कि इंडस्ट्री वहाँ पे ट्रस्ट करती है कि दीज पीपल, दीज आर टॉप नॉच in terms of their knowledge, in terms of their experience, in terms of their research. मैं अभी इंडस्ट्री के लोगों से मेरी यहाँ कुछ इंटरेक्शन हुई पिछले 1-1.5 साल में, ठीक है, और मैं समझता था कि पता नहीं यहाँ पे इतनी बड़े वो सॉफ्टवेयर हाउसेज हैं, ये हैं, सब हैं। मैंने 3-4 लोगों से जाके जो टेक्निकल साइड पे हैं, जो टेक्निकल हेड्स हैं और बड़े कंपनीज के हैं, जब मैंने उससे टेक्निकली बात की तो वो अभी तक 15-20 साल पुराने एल्गोरिथम्स पे काम कर रहे हैं। जैसे अगर आप उस पर कह लें HCI है फॉर एग्जांपल, या इमेज प्रोसेसिंग वगैरह पे, तो खैर मेरा डोमेन नहीं है ये, लेकिन मुझे थोड़ी बहुत नॉलेज है कि क्या चल रहा है डोमेन में। मैंने जब उनसे जाके बात की तो मेरा परसेप्शन ये था कि शायद ये बहुत एडवांस हो गए, दे नो व्हाट इज गोइंग ऑन इन द इंडस्ट्री। मुझे पता चला वो तो 15-20 साल पुरानी टेक्नोलॉजीज हैं। ओके, नहीं बस काम चल रहा है हमारा, इसलिए एवरीथिंग इज गुड, वी डोंट वांट टू डिस्टर्ब एनीथिंग, हम कुछ नया नहीं करना चाहते, हमारे क्लाइंट्स खुश हैं, हमारा काम। थिंग्स डोंट वर्क लाइक दैट। काम आज चल रहा है, कल खत्म हो जाएगा, राइट? इफ यू डू नॉट अपडेट एंड अपग्रेड योरसेल्फ, तो ये कुछ दिन के बाद ये एक जो है ना, एक पूरी तरह से कोलैप्स आएगा इंडस्ट्री के ऊपर, और ये सब चीजें बैठ जाएंगी एकदम। दिस इज माई पर्सनल ओपिनियन, दैट डज नॉट मीन कि आई एम ऑलवेज राइट, बट दिस इज माई पर्सनल ऑब्जर्वेशन। तो यस, आई एग्री विद यू टू सम एक्सटेंट कि चीज़ें होनी चाहिए, लेकिन अपनी इंडिविजुअल कैपेसिटी में नहीं कर सकते। इसके लिए इनिशिएटिव्स होने चाहिए, रिसर्च ग्रांट्स होनी चाहिए कि इस तरह का प्रोजेक्ट मल्टी डायमेंशनल, मल्टी डिसिप्लिनरी और मल्टी इंस्टीट्यूशनल प्रोजेक्ट, जो बहुत सारे इंस्टीट्यूशन इन्वॉल्व हों, जिसमें इंडस्ट्री का भी स्टेक हो, जिसमें इंस्टीट्यूशनल स्टेक भी हो जो एकेडेमिया है, जिसमें गवर्नमेंट या एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव साइड भी स्टेक हो। उसके बगैर चीज़ें नहीं चल सकती। सो आई होप इफ इट्स क्लियर इनफ टू यू। किसी और को कोई सवाल हो तो पूछ सकते हैं। Sorry, but मैं इस पे कमेंट नहीं कर सकता because now I'm not the domain expert on that. जी.
Any more further questions? Please do raise your hand, and the host will unmute your mic. Host, are there any questions in the chat?
There is no question in chat. You can close now.
Okay, as our Q&A session has ended, we also have one of the most prestigious faculty members of mechatronics from PF-KIET with us today. Ma'am, would you like to say something? Host, can you please unmute?
Ma'am Sophia, can you?
हाँ, अस्सलाम वालेकुम। मेरा नाम सोफिया है और क्या कहते हैं, मैंने जो है ऑब्वियसली एल्गोरिथम्स के ऊपर हम इलेक्ट्रिकल इंजीनियरिंग में काम कर रहे होते हैं और इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स में भी काम कर रहे होते हैं, तो क्या कहते हैं इनके एनालिसिस भी ज़रूरी है और इससे अपडेट होना भी बहुत ज़रूरी है कि अभी करंट रिसर्च में कौन से एल्गोरिथम जो है ना वो ज़्यादा अच्छा परफॉर्म कर रहे हैं मोस्ट ऑफ द क्रिटिकल प्रॉब्लम्स के लिए। तो बस यही मेरा ऑब्जेक्टिव था इस प्रेजेंटेशन को अटेंड करने का, जो कि अच्छे तरीके से फुलफिल हुआ। और क्या कहते हैं मेरा अगला जो मतलब टारगेट था जी, तो एक तो मेरा ये ऑब्जेक्टिव फुलफिल हुआ, दूसरा ये ऑब्जेक्टिव है कि ये मुझे पता चला कि भाई जेनेटिक एल्गोरिथम जो है जिस पर भी मैंने काम शुरू नहीं किया है, क्योंकि मेरा जो बैकग्राउंड है वो इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स सर्किट्स से ज़्यादा है एज कम्पेयर टू मतलब एल्गोरिथम्स, लेकिन उसमें भी हम जब वेरिएबल्स को ऑप्टिमाइज करने की बात करते हैं तो वहाँ पे हमें एल्गोरिथम्स को सेलेक्ट करना और उसको पर्टिकुलर प्रॉब्लम पे अप्लाई करना, तो ये चीज़ एक इम्पोर्टेंट मतलब पार्ट होता है उसका। तो एक ये सेकंड ऑब्जेक्टिव जो है वो फुलफिल हुआ कि मुझे पता चला कि जेनेटिक एल्गोरिथम जो है वो ज़्यादा अच्छे तरीके से परफॉर्म कर रहे हैं 70%। तो मुझे ना क्या कहते हैं एक तरीके से ये चीज़ पता चली है कि भाई ऑप्टिमाइजेशन के लिए अगर प्रॉब्लम है तो उस पर आप पहले किस चीज़ को टेस्ट करके देखें। तो मेरी ये जी और प्रेजेंटेशन बहुत अच्छी गई, फ्लो बहुत अच्छा था, जो क्वेश्चन ट्राई किया था तो वो मतलब कभी काफी फुलफिल हो गया और थैंक यू सो मच।
Very good, I'm glad. You are most welcome. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We are honored as well your presence today. Oh, okay. As we head towards the end of this webinar, sir, can you please give us your screen sharing option? As the IEEE MUET-SZAB Student Branch would like to present a small token of appreciation.
Sure. Let me just.
No problem.
Okay, it's yours now.
Okay, sir.
Oh, thank you very much. That looks very nice. Yeah.
Yes, this is Shoaib Ahmed here from IEEE MUET-SZAB Student Branch. So, Dr. Salman, it's been a pleasure to hear from your valuable insights today. This has portrayed a view of meaningful session for us. So, thank you very much for your precious time and delivering an informative webinar through the platform of IEEE Student Branch's collaborative virtual initiatives. Thank you, sir, for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me in the presentation. It was a sheer pleasure listening to all of you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, on behalf of all participants and our entire organizing body, we would like to thank you humbly for joining us today and giving us your time. It was an honor for us. Thank you so much. And we would like thank our participants for joining us today as well, showing interest in our events, particularly those who have joined us today from India, Qatar, and Tunisia. Thank you so much for your continued support. As we explained before, we will share a quiz link with you all, and you will be eligible for your certificates after attempting it. A recording of this event will also be provided. And thank you so much once again, and goodbye for now. Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz and take care.
Thank you, sir. Jazakallah.
Yeah.